Hello and welcome to episode 1122 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Monday, December 19th. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this afternoon by Justin Mason. Justin, good day, sir.
Good morning. Oh no,
Well,
afternoon. It's afternoon. I'm
you're the
still
one
not used.
messing up, finally.
I know. Still not used to the our shift change.
Yeah, we don't do a
Um,
ton of day ones. So this
mhm,
is only like our third Monday one, I think. And we missed
mhm.
Friday. You were under the weather. Glad you're feeling better, by the way. That's why Sunday was also off. But, rallied, getting everything situated here. It's obviously week before Christmas. How are you doing other than the health piece?
I'm feeling behind. Like
On Christmas shopping or work?
I mean, yeah, work. Like just this constant being sick thing has been put me kind of behind the eight ball on my projections on the articles that I wanted to be writing right now. So I'm mending right now, and I've got a lot of really, really like cool stuff planned for the new year and stuff. So people like, if you like me, there'll
I
be a lot of me coming because I've already booked like 40 podcasts or something like that
yeah.
for the new year. So you'll be hearing me all over the place, uh, mostly on this feed and the Front Space Minister feed. But yeah, I'm. Christmas kind of snuck up on me, man. Like
Dude, I'm telling you, 19th, man, it's this week. This is it. This is it.
yeah,
I'm doing pretty good on stuff. I need a trip out today. Like I get the cold, obviously. I'm familiar with how winter works, but today we got like a massive thunderstorm. It's all rainy and disgusting outside.
mm,
I'm like, it's one thing when it's cold, which I obviously don't like, and that's well documented. I'm going out in the rain. So, I kind of punted on today. I was going to go in the early afternoon before we potted, and then I was like, okay, well, I'll go tomorrow. So hopefully it isn't as crappy tomorrow because I got to get a few things done, and then I'm all situated, and then the following week, starting the 26th, the site will be dark, so do not expect much from us then, if at all. We'll be enjoying the time, and hopefully everyone else enjoys their time. Plus, things have really calmed down. We have another moves episode here today. It's going to cover a lot of big moves. But then you go look at the free agent tracker on Roster Resource and click to the unsigned, and it's not much. Okay, you do the projected WAR for the following year. There's only two guys over 2 WAR, and that's Gene Segura and Nathan Eovaldi. And then if you round, you get another handful of guys who bump up to 2 WAR. Excuse me, Elvis Andrus, Corey Kluber, Michael Conforto, Brandon Drury, and Michael Waka in the 1.5 to 1.9 range. So after today, it's going to have to turn to like the trade market to really maneuver things and have big moves. But that said, we do still have a lot of moves, especially because we didn't go on Friday. Two big Carloses signed, and we'll get to yours in a moment. I'm going to keep you waiting just a second to talk about
they're
Carlos.
both mine. One used to be
Well, yeah,
mine. One is
one
now
you
mine.
lost, one you gained. That's true. That's true.
Mhm.
I was focused on Correa going to your Giants, but let's talk about the one you're losing. Carlos Rodón going to the Yankees. And my standard caveat all the time is, we're not that worried about the term of it in fantasy, especially maybe in longer term leagues, sure. But I do want to talk a little bit about that with regards to Rodón because you are a Giants fan and your team had him. He's awesome. He's looked great these last 2 years. What would you have felt like if they went 6 years with him the way the Yankees did? 6 years, 162 mil.
Who 6 years is a long time for a guy with his health track record.
That's kind of how I felt, man.
I mean, I understand doing it because that's I think what it was going to take. Like I think he was. I mean, reportedly he was looking for a seventh year.
I
Um,
know. I
so
remember seeing
clearly
that. I was just like,
nobody
ooh.
was giving him a seventh year. Um, so and good for him, man. Like he deserves
Yeah,
to
get
get
paid.
paid. Yeah,
Get
like
paid.
absolutely. Would I have loved to see the Giants sign him? Yes, but I knew it was never going to be a possibility considering they were unwilling to give him Kevin Gosman, who's been relatively healthy his entire career, 5 years.
Hmm.
So like they're not giving Rodon 6 years, much less 5 years. So like I mean,
And part of that isn't just the player. I think with the Giants, it's what they can do with other players. Like they trust themselves to take the
mhm,
shots on the next Rodons and the next Gosmans of the world, and either get them back to a level in the terms of Gossman or maximize them in terms of Rodon. And so I think that's part of why they're not really going to be interested in that either. Meanwhile, you look at the Yankees. They'd missed out on a bunch of the big guys so far, despite, kind of always being in the mix. They did get Judge, of course, but that wasn't going to be enough to satiate their fans or really put them in a position that they would feel comfortable with. So signing a secondary ace, a lefty to Garrett Cole's righty there for that 1-2 punch is really nice. All of a sudden you're going Cole, Rodón, Severino, Nestor Cortez, and Frankie Montas as your top 5. That is really strong, particularly if Montas is healthy again. But let's talk about Rodón specifically. Of course, he's coming back to the American League after 1 year with the Giants, an excellent season, 2.88 ERA, 103 WHIP, 33% strikeout rate, just a little bit lower than his 35% mark from 2021. The talent's unquestioned. We're not going to sit here and ask, is Carlos Rodón good? We've seen these 2 years now, ages 28 and 29. They show the guy that we thought he could be back when he was a number 3 overall pick. It all comes down to the health. Let's say he has a good bit of health, right? Gets up to 165 plus innings. Okay. What's that look like in New York for Carlos Rodón?
I mean, I think he's still clearly an ace. I think obviously leaving San Francisco hurts in terms of park, but you actually look at his X home runs. And actually, I'll ask you. I kind of gave it away a little bit there, but he gave up 12 home runs.
Mm-hmm.
If he had pitched all his games in Yankee Stadium, how many home runs do you think he would have given up?
15?
No.
Fewer.
Much fewer. Half is few. 6 home runs.
What? So they must have all been to right field or left field.
So yeah, I mean, because he's left-handed, it minimizes the damage. That short porch in Yankee Stadium had.
Yeah, because it'll be lefty. It'll be a lot harder for those lefties to go yard on him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He only gave up 2 home runs to left-handed batters last year. So
wow.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are going to be a lot of people who really, really downgrade him because of this. And I think you should downgrade him a little bit, obviously. But in some ways, you maybe shouldn't, because while he probably takes a little bit of a hit in the ratios, his ratio has been just absolutely stellar the last 2 seasons. And he's going to go to a much better team that's going to win a ton of games. And we've talked over and over again in the course of us doing projections about how much your value moves based on 1 or 2 wins. I mean, you could theoretically, he only, in 29 starts last year, he won 14 games. I think you can reasonably project him to win 16 games in New York. And I think if he stays healthy, he's a legit shot at 20 wins.
You don't project Rodón.
You don't project that, obviously.
But you know that, going to this team, there's certainly a chance for him to really jump up in wins, and Rodón to have, kind of a culmination of these last 2 seasons and build on top of it for a mega season. We've already seen the sub-3 ERA twice. We saw a sub-1 WHIP in 2021 and then a 103 last year. So sub-3 ERA, low ones or below 1 WHIP, but maybe if he can somehow get, 180 plus innings, would not be surprised if the Yankees were able to push him into that 20 win threshold for Carlos Rodón. So that is definitely huge. And the interesting thing about the park factors, the Yankees park is not particularly bad overall. They have a 99 park factor that situates them, firmly in the middle, because there's so many ties. They're 16th, but there are 5 teams that have 99, so they could be 16th or 20th, depending on how you look at it. It's that home run park factor for sure. It's a 113, which is 8th in the league these last 3 years. But as you mentioned, Rodón is somebody who could definitely stifle that and not necessarily get fully punished by it because he is a lefty. So this is a good move. I wouldn't move him down too much. I'm not sure that I'm necessarily even going to move him down at all. I'm pretty big on Rodón, and San Francisco to New York, the perception is huge, but as you've just laid out, the reality is that it shouldn't be that big of a move. So I'm going to stick with Rodón where I've got him.
Yeah, I probably will too. I'm really interested to see where he ends up in terms of his ADP now. Does he fall a round or 2 because of this?
People get scared.
Yeah,
yep. I would love that.
I think people will,
good.
And
sign us up then.
Yeah. Even though I'm not a huge fan of first year, new park, new contract, I think he's just elite. And I just think if he has a drop like Gausman did in his first year of Toronto, where he starts going like outside the top 20 starting pitchers, like I'm going to be for that all day long.
Yeah, I again, you said we share the caution on the first year of a huge deal, but if the price cancels out that concern by going too low, I'm right back in. Let's move over back to your team, getting somebody, a Carlos. We can only have one Carlos on the team, guys. So they got rid of Rodón and they brought in Carlos Correa. You got your big offensive guy here on the big fat deal, 13 years for Carlos Correa. Obviously that's a huge outlay on the years, but he is one of the best guys to do it because he's on the right side of 30 for 2 more years. You get 28 and 29 in there, and he's awesome. He's so good. I feel like in the fantasy world he's so underrated because he doesn't steal. He literally has 6 steals since 2017. Okay, sure, I get that, and the health piece too. I'm not going to pretend it's only the steals and bury my head in the sand on the health piece, but the skills themselves are unimpeachable for Carlos Rodón. It's just a matter of what you're going to get volume-wise, and we don't really know. But I like him going out to San Francisco, and I'm not particularly worried about that park necessarily. I think this is a good move for your boys. What did you think about him? First, as a fan, well, right when you saw it, what was your first instinct as a fan of the Giants? And not a fan of Correa. They speak so boldly and tell you and say that about you because you've never been his biggest fan.
No, this is really bittersweet for me, to be quite frank. Like as a fan, it's nice to see the team go out and spend money, because we've done really no major pickups in the last few years. I mean, outside of Rodón, kind of on a cheap, 2-year deal with the opt out after one, which he opted out for. Mm-hmm. Like we haven't had like a major signing like this. Not to say we haven't tried. I just think, especially from the hitter side, hitters don't want to go to San Francisco. And I think a lot of people are going to say like, oh, it was an overpay. And it's way too many years. I think that's the only way you get hitters to come to a park like San Francisco with a team like San Francisco. It'd be one thing if they were winning. But I think they needed to kind of make this move in the same way that the Padres did with Manny Machado a few years ago, right?
Yes.
Like they were willing to shell out huge money early on the hopes that, hey, in a couple of years we're going to compete with Machado, and it's worked out really well for them. And I think the Giants are kind of doing the same thing, hopes that like one, they've got talent coming up to the minors, and two, that this one signing may open up the floodgates for other people to want to come to San Francisco. So as a fan, like I was like, hey, they went out and did something. It's not the guy I wanted. It wasn't even like the top shortstop that I wanted. But they went out and did something. They went after Judge. I'm glad they didn't get that contract. I think Correa's contract will age better than Judge's, even though it's 5 years longer, maybe 4 years longer. I can't remember how many years now Judge's. But from an analyst perspective, from a fantasy player's perspective, I hate this. This is awful. The Giants are not in a position to compete right now. Adding 3 Correas right now wouldn't make them the second best team in the division.
That is verifiably false.
We'll talk about the Dodgers here in a minute. I don't know what the fuck they've been doing this offseason.
They're chilling. Yeah, obviously you're looking up at the Padres right now instead of the Dodgers, right? The Dodgers are kind of on their own pedestal. So I think if I'm the Giants, I'm comparing myself to the Padres. I don't know. I don't think you guys are that far off of them offensively.
Well, here's off of the Padres?
You don't think there's going to be any rebound? Like, I think you're just going off of last year. Are you just completely ignoring what y'all did in 2021 when you won 107 games?
Yes.
Okay, absolutely. Well, that's insane.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
They shouldn't have won 90 games, which is 107. But like, no, they're not even close to being on par with San Diego. I don't believe. Can they compete? Yes, because there's an extra wild card, which gives them the opportunity. But like, serious
you're
question,
wildly overrating San Diego's offense right now.
I'm not.
It is half a lineup, dude. Nola, Grisham, Campusano, and Azakar are the bottom half
That
of the lineup.
is still 4 pieces better than the Giants lineup, which has just one player in it.
No, it's not. I mean, stop. Like, it's
this
it's
isn't
just
like
not
when you
that
play
good.
like backyard baseball with your friends and you hit, and then there's a ghost runner, and he gets to go. Correa gets to go hit again. Like
you got Correa, Haniger, Peterson, Estrada, Yastrzemski. Like, it's not an amazing lineup. JD Davis was smacking the hell out of the ball. Like, I'm not sitting here saying it's a great lineup. I just think you're wildly overrating the Padres. And I know the Padres lineup doesn't have Tatis yet, so that will change.
What team is better right now, the Giants or the Diamondbacks?
I like that Diamondback squad. I really do.
The fact you're thinking about it tells me the Giants shouldn't have made a move like this.
No, that's so stupid to say that they shouldn't have made a move like this, though. When do you start? Like, when do you make moves then? Like, I could not disagree with you more, because then you'd have been saying the same thing about the Tigers last year if they'd done this move, and I couldn't disagree with that more. Like, when are you supposed to? Like, when you have everything in place? That's not how it works.
When you have something in place. They have nothing.
They do have something in place. An amazing structure of how they build and develop players, right? Like, that's part of how they were able to win 100. I can't believe I have to gas you up on your own fucking team. This is insane. Like, look what they do. I just got done talking about it with the Rodón thing. Look what they do with pitching. They got the Minaya and Stripling deals, which I like both of those to go with Webb, Cobb, and Wood, because
I like the moves they've made.
Of course you sign a 28-year-old like this. 100%. The Pirates should have been in on this. In fact, they were rumored at one point, and people were making fun of that. And I'm like, well, when do they start then? Like, we can't out of one sides of our mouth make fun of the teams that sit out the offseason after offseason, and then on the other side, when they get rumored in, saying, well, what are they doing? What are they going to do? Sign Correa? It's like, yeah, they're going to sign Correa. I think this is exactly the right move that any team should have done for Correa, let alone the Giants, who are at least in the stratosphere of competition. They were 500 last year and 107 wins the year before that. I don't know, man. Like, this is a Giants team, right? Like, the Giants are never superstar laden. So they got a superstar with Correa, but then the rest of the team is Giants as hell. Estrada, Yastrzemski, Peterson, Haniger, B-Craw, JD Davis, Lamont Wade, and Joey Bart. Like, 3 of those guys are going to have out of nowhere seasons, because that's the Giants way. The pitching staff is good. It needs to stay healthy, which is a big challenge, but they got Junis and Desclafani as backups there. So they run 7 deep right now. You got Elliot Ramos coming up as a prospect who's on the cusp. They don't have a ton of great prospects. So I'm not trying to overstate them, but I think you're way too down on your ball club.
And maybe this is just like,
fandom. We're a little too close to it, maybe.
Yeah, I'm a little too close. I'm, not that far removed from 3 championships, and I go, this isn't a championship caliber team. So
those were championship caliber teams.
They weren't. They absolutely
That's
weren't.
my point, though. So why are you? What standard are you holding this team to? I get on one level, you're not expecting that to happen again, so you are holding it to a higher standard than those 3 championship winners. I do get that, but I know as a non-fan of the Giants, give them a lot of trust of what they're able to do when they can milk the best of their guys. And if y'all spike some good health next year, which will not be easy, it is still an old team. I grant all the flaws here. Again, I'm not trying to say this is a great team. I'm not trying to say they're on the par with the Dodgers, but I feel like you're thinking that they're way down in the dumps, and I think they're right there. I think they're not that far behind San Diego, and I think they're right there with the D-backs. So I do think it's a good club, and I like that.
I think they're right there with the D-backs. I obviously have a much higher opinion of the Padres than you do. So
well, I like the Padres pitching. And again, put Tatis in there after a month, right? He comes back on the 30th, and that does lengthen, but that's still a third of the lineup that sucks. And listen, I love our boy. We've been on the Ha-Seong Kim train from day one. He was a 105 WRC plus last year. So, he's not a superstar either. So it maybe is still, even when you put Tatis back in there, it's 5 great and 4 mediocre to bad players, depending on what Grisham can do this year and where Nola's at and where Kim himself is at. But I don't think there's some set in stone, unimpeachable ball club there in San Diego.
Yeah.
So bottom line here, let's bottom line it with Carlos Correa at shortstop. He already goes late because of shortstop's depth and the aforementioned underrating of him that I believe is partly due to that depth, but again, partly due to the fact that he's way too hammered for not stealing. And so he just slides down that shortstop ranking. Where do you think Correa goes from here? He's 14th shortstop off the board right now. I can't really see him going much later than that. Tommy Edman and Ahmed Rosario, Nico Horner are the three behind him. Does he start to trickle up, or which with Pena, Adames, and Bogarts ahead of him, or does he just kind of stay right here in the 13 to 16 range for Carlos Correa? What do you think?
I'm pulling up the ADP because what do you have your ADP?
I mean, I accidentally did it from 12-10 because I was looking at a Gladiator thing. There was only one DC for that, and I now did all of December. There's only 4, but yeah, he's 15th. Carlos Correa is 15th at pick 127.
15th.
And again, but look, that speaks to the depth of shortstop because 15 go in the top 127. Like, that's pretty crazy. There's no other position except probably outfield and pitcher that has 15 go. The 15th first baseman is 171. The 15th second baseman is 190.
I mean, it feels like a steal. I mean,
it really does. But I mean, it's still a relatively high pick, but it is the 15th shortstop off the board. If you wait and you quote unquote get stuck with Correa, you don't feel bad at all, do you?
No, I mean, he's probably gonna hit third in that lineup, and as much as I hate on Correa before, like I think the main question is, like, do you have your other bases covered? Because he's not going to steal any bases, like you mentioned,
and the volume could be light.
The volume is
you have to plan for lighter.
It could become an issue, but I think he represents the last guy of like I want this guy at shortstop tier.
As my main shortstop. Yep.
Shortstop is really, really good, the position, but there is a real distinct drop off between, and like I said, I think Correa is probably the last guy of that before you start going into, like, I know Nico Horner is getting a lot of love.
So is Rosario, by the way. So other people might say those two are the cutoff. I'm Correa isn't a cutoff for me because I have him higher. But I get, in the terms of this ADP, I agree.
Yeah.
Like, when you're looking at it, that is the last guy that I would want as my primary shortstop.
Yeah. Like, I like Ahmed Rosario, so like I wouldn't be like hating on like ending up with him, but
the rest of your team better be so crisp if he's your starting shortstop.
I think if Correa is your starting shortstop, your team better be pretty crisp, because there is risk there with the playing time. I mean, this is a guy that's only gotten over 600 plate appearances twice in his career. I don't think the park's going to hurt him as much as, probably people are going to make it out to be. You look at the X home runs, he would have had 2 more home runs in San Francisco than in Houston. So I think he'll be fine in terms of the power. The question is, like, how many games can we reasonably project Correa to play? Like, how many, are we projecting him to get to 600 plate appearances? I felt just short of it this year. I think it's fine to project 600 or 575.
I project 140 games. Whatever that brings him to. That's about what, just loosely do 4 plate appearances per. I'm in the 560. I'm in the upper 500s, but I can't go 600 on Correa. I got to be cautious. And then if I can spike a 600 the way he had 640 in 2021, great. But Correa only has 2 600 plus plate appearance seasons. So
he
was 10 shy last year.
Yeah, and he's relatively really healthy the last 3 seasons. So I think
the turntables have turned that you are now arguing the health of Carlos Correa. I love this.
I mean, I don't think it's something you want to like go overboard on. But yeah, I mean, I think he and the Giants are very cautious with guys, and they're going to be very cautious with him. They've got him signed for a long time. So like, I think he'll get regular days off, and even if he is completely healthy, like I think max 140 is the kind of like game totals we're looking at for Correa this season.
Let's shift back to fan mode for you real quick when I ask this question. Would you rather your favorite team have signed this next guy, Dansby Swanson, for 7/177, which, by the way, I thought it was signed, sealed, and delivered that he was going to get 200, which I thought would have been a mistake to go 200 on Dansby. So the fact that he came in at 7/177, that's pretty good. Even acknowledging that, he had the perfect spike year going into free agency, so you have to pay full freight on that. And I am a little bit nervous that he's probably more of a 3-win guy. But hey, the loose calculation of dollars per WAR is around $8 million. If a 3-win guy, that's about 28 mil or 24 mil, excuse me. That's $25 million a year. right there. So I really didn't mind this deal. And you said, yes, as a fan, you would have rather your team sign 7 for 177 for Swanson. Is it simply because of the term, or do you have some feeling about him that you like him a little bit better as well over Correa? What do you think about Swanson?
I don't think they're that different of players. I honestly, I don't. I'd much rather have the shorter term.
It's like half, literally half the term.
Yeah. Plus the hair.
Dude. Come on.
You go from Brandon Crawford, in his hair at shortstop for the last decade or so.
You could have been a good passing of the torch. You're right.
Yeah, right. Could you imagine both of those hairs playing short
on the left side?
Yeah,
oh man.
How do you even concentrate as a left-handed hitter looking right at that?
You don't. You don't.
So,
if you're on the field, even at first base, whoever you guys got at first base, maybe he's get caught looking over there, just admiring it, right?
And maybe that's why they didn't go for it.
They knew,
especially because casual weather is such a big thing.
You got to be careful.
The can be blowing everywhere. This is why Brandon Crawford weighs it down with that product and stuff. So,
smart.
No, I would have rather had Swanson. It's really funny that it came down to my Giants getting the two guys I've shit on the most.
Crapped on so much in recent years.
If Corey Seager had somehow gotten involved, we would have had a really, really fun.
I wish y'all had been in heavy talks for him last year. Missed out on him, and then fell back to the other two guys that you've crushed. So again, I mentioned big career season, 6-win campaign, 6.4. Right there on the cusp of a 7-win season. 25 homers, 18 steals, 96 ribbies, 99 runs, hitting 277. Just excellent stuff out of Swanson at age 28. 27 homers and 9 steals the year before. Another good fantasy season, even though he only hit 248. He's been a solid fantasy asset now pretty much since 2019, because even then, 17 homers, 10 steals, 251. That wasn't too bad, and he wasn't terribly expensive. Is this a new level, or was it just a spike year where he played every game and everything went well for Dansby Swanson? Or do you believe he can be like a 25-15 kind of? He had 18, but do you have him in the mid-20s with upper teens steals again? Or do you think he settles back down closer to 2021's numbers, which again, were actually 2 more homers, but 9 fewer steals and 30 points fewer batting average?
So this is interesting because you and I talked recently when Wilson Contreras signed with the Cardinals, and we were kind of oh, well, it's a bad park factor. And then we looked up last year's park factor is actually it would have been really friendly in St. Louis for him, but not very friendly in Chicago. And so when I kind of looked up the park factors on Swanson, I was expecting to say, oh, this is going to be really bad for him considering last year. But in Chicago, his ex home runs would have been 33 home runs.
Oh, wow.
Chicago. So power play
a lot more there.
Yeah, I think his power is going to play just fine there. And Chicago was 4th in the major leagues in terms of stolen bases. So they
let their guys run.
They let their guys run. Now that may slow down as they become a little bit more competitive. Maybe they're not as willing to push it on the base paths. Maybe they don't want the guy they just gave $177 million to push it as much on the base paths. And so, in my chat today, someone asked me, hey, what do I expect from Swanson? I said, I think 27-15 is about where I'll be, 250-ish batting average. I do believe kind of in the talent there. And the one thing that he has done the last few years is stay on the field. We're talking 162 games last year, 160 the year before, 60 in the 60-game season. That was an issue for him earlier on in his career. He's having trouble staying on the field. He's a fantastic defender. This is a great deal for Chicago. Honestly, I think him and Correa, I don't think there is as much of a difference as maybe other people do. I would have rather had Swanson, and that is a weird thing to say.
I was certainly impressed with what the Cubs ended up paying him, because again, I was really dead set that it was going to be $200+ million. And I would have been nervous on that, especially if it would have been a double-digit term as well. If they'd have gone, over 200 and 8, 9, 10 years, I don't know about that, but 177, Good job, Cubs. Let's talk
Considering what Bogarts and
That's what I'm
Turner
saying.
and
Where everyone
Correa,
else was, I thought for sure his was going to be sky high, and it ended up being pretty reasonable. So good on the Cubs with that.
I'm surprised Swanson didn't actually get that from somebody. Like
I thought he would, but I guess it wasn't out there. Other teams realized, hey, maybe we don't want to go too crazy here. Let's talk Dodgers. You mentioned that you're not entirely sure what they're doing. They're playing in the shallower end right now. They're not going out and getting the big pieces. They've been in the rumors of some of the bigger guys, but never really to the finish line. So instead, they make a couple small moves here. We'll get to the pitcher first. Noah Syndergaard going out there. The second a pitcher goes out there, they're back on everyone's radar. Obviously, this happened with your boy Heaney, and it will happen with Noah Syndergaard for sure. We talk about the fact that he does not have Thor's hammer anymore, though. Can they rediscover it? And I don't necessarily mean so much the curveball, which is what people normally call a hammer. I mean his velo, his power. We have not seen the power from Thor in recent years. The injuries have piled up. He still throws, 94.5. That's not bad velo, but when you're talking about somebody who used to average 100 and then even in the 98 range for a couple of years, 18 and 19, and then now has been down in the 94 mile an hour range, 94.5 last year. It's just not as good. His strikeout rate was 17% last year, 9% swinging strike rate. Can the Dodgers rediscover the swing and miss for Syndergaard and bring him back up to the Thor that we used to know and love?
If anybody can, the Dodgers can, but I have to see it first. Like I have to see some reading. Like, the velo is a huge issue, which is really super concerning because typically velo is the first thing that comes back after Tommy John surgery, and it is not. We're not just talking about on the fastball, on every single pitch. And until I see that velo back, I am going to stay far away from him, even though he is on the Dodgers. And the Dodgers are miracle workers in terms of pitchers, especially guys who have had injuries and a little bit older. I need to see the velo back.
He lost a ton, Thor did, off that slider. That's a great point to point out that it's not just the fastball. And in fact, you can make a case that's a bigger deal on this slider. You're going from 89 to 85. That's a 4-mile dip. And that 89 was in 2019. It was 90 plus the years before that. So that is a huge fall off.
It was the slider fastball combination which made him Thor.
Yes.
Right? Like it was, not only did you have to look out for 99, you also had to look out for this amazing wipeout slider that would go past most hitters anyway. So until I see the velo back, I'm not going to touch it.
I hear you on wanting to see the velo back. I think the price is fine to where I would still buy sight unseen, because the second that he does come into, a spring training game, he's throwing 97. Well, there goes that price. So, he's a 392 ADP right now in the last 4 draft champions. I will take that shot that, he's in that late round there, where one thing that we've talked about in recent years is not dismissing the notion that veterans have upside too. And I think this is an instance where a veteran has some upside, just like we said last year with Heaney. I do trust the Dodgers. It isn't great, but even with the lower velo and the crappy strikeout rate, he was still a 3.94 ERA, 1.25 WHIP for Thor. So even if that's all I got with that late pick, I could still work with that. It's not going to kill me, but I'm going to take a few shots on Thor in the winter here in case he gets back and then everybody goes crazy for him.
Sure.
What about JD? JD Martinez signed to be their DH. This is another guy that people are hoping to get back. He also lost power. Obviously, it's a little bit different hitter versus pitcher. But now this is 2 of the last 3 seasons. I know 2020 isn't a season, and we gave him a nice pass for 2020 when JD Martinez's ISO went down to 175 after being in the upper 200s, it was high 300s in 2017. That was a crazy spike season. He usually lives in like the mid to upper 200s for ISO, which is true premium power. 175 is very unimpressive. Okay, there was no video. We gave him a pass. He bounced back to 232 ISO in 2021. Boom, JD Martinez is back. Fake out. 174 ISO last year, back down to shit. 35 years old. Can the Dodgers rediscover JD Martinez's power?
I'm skeptical because I don't think this is a matter of he's missing something. I think this is just Father Time catching up with JD Martinez. The bat speed just isn't there.
I hate Father Time.
Yeah,
he doesn't do anything good.
No,
He's a bad father.
He makes a gray beard, which some chicks are into that. But
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, people like that. Okay, but that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it. A gray beard. But other than that, he's kind of a dick, ruining people's careers and shit. And he's undefeated. He never even loses. He never tries to lose. Never gives any sort of reprieve. 16 homers, 62 ribbies, 76 runs. That's 43 doubles. Doubles power was still there, and having the green monster probably helped with that for JD as well. 139 games. You're definitely baking in some missed time. I think you go with a 135, 140 game projection. But if that power doesn't return, that's a pretty bland UT only guy, right? Because JD did not keep outfield, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, no, he didn't play a single game in the outfield last year.
So that's one thing that was awesome about him last year was that he regained outfield, and so you can go back for him. So everyone was interested in JD, and then he has a crap season, and now he's DH util only again. So that's a double pain for me with JD.
Yeah, and I mean, you kind of hate this for the Dodgers or for other Dodgers players, because now does Will Smith get a lot of DH at bats now?
Nope, he will not.
That being said, his X home runs in Dodger Stadium would have been 24, which is pretty good.
That's 8 more. Yeah, that's 50% jump.
Yeah, I think maybe a lot of those home runs that hit the monster and didn't go over it, maybe would have been home runs in Dodger Stadium. I think he's a guy I'm okay betting on because
pick 250-ish, 253.
Yeah, that's
last 4 DCs.
Fine. You're talking about a guy who was a top 50, top 75 pick previously. So I think you take the gamble, especially because there are going to be leagues where he really, really drops a lot being DH only. There's some people who just refuse to put him in their lineup if they don't have, if he doesn't have a position. So I think he's worth a gamble. I prefer him in leagues where I can drop him if he is just washed. But I also think even if he is just what we saw last year, that's still a usable player in deeper formats. So I'm fine with that.
Yeah, that's the thing too. Is it's not the end of the world in deep, but in those shallower formats, 10s and 12s, not so much with JD, especially with util only. So it'll depend on the league. It'll depend on the price. I still have a lot of allegiance for him from his Tigers days, and so I got to make sure I don't have that bias infiltrating too much when I'm drafting. And usually I'm able to keep it at bay. I don't just go around drafting Tigers and former Tigers willy-nilly, but I'm rooting for him for sure. Let's go to his former team here. They were in the news big time. We didn't get to Masataka Yoshida because that happened after our last episode as well. And then they had another signing and a key DFA. But let's talk about Yoshida coming over from NPB. He's a really interesting player. I watched a video on him by Jolly Olive, who does great videos on YouTube, breaking down different baseball stuff. And what I came away with, looking at the stats and everything, is he's got a little bit of a Verdugo type of vibe to him with, the plate skills look great, but it's not a ton of pop. It's more pop for over there, but the way the power I expect to translate, he looks like he could be Verdugo-esque to me. What do you think of Masataka Yoshida coming over to Boston on a 5-year deal?
That's literally the comp I've been using. Is
okay, perfect. So we're on the same page there.
I've talked about him a few times now on pods, and I think he's Verdugo-esque. Probably teens power, pre-steroids Melky Cabrera. So 5 to 7 stolen bases, 15 to 17 home runs, 260, 270 batting average, but he's going to walk a fair amount, and so get on base. Right now, we haven't projected to lead off. So that's a lot of runs on a team.
Wait, I'm a dumbass. We did talk about him.
Okay, that's what I thought.
I thought so too, but you know what happens? He doesn't have a player page yet. Yeah. So when I went to his player page to see if he was in there, he can't link. So I'm sorry about that. You can finish your piece there, but I was looking it up. I was like, I thought we did talk about it, but maybe I'm just going crazy. No. So we did it, and I'm very sorry about that. You know what tipped me off is I thought I referenced that video earlier, which I did, and it was on this show. So sorry about that. Like I said, until he gets a player page, he doesn't link. So I couldn't find if we had talked about him. So my fault on that. But anyway, are you interested in drafting him? Are you more interested now than you were 10 days ago when we talked about him?
I mean, I'm interested depending on where the price ends up being. I think as we start to see more drafts finish, because I think Mike Curlin said he was in a draft where like right after he signed, he went like 110 or something like that. Like if he's that high, there's no effing way.
No, I'm not taking that side unseen. I would rather just draft. I would rather just draft what's his face, Verdugo at that point.
Yeah, I assume his ADP is going to be around like pick 200-ish.
He's 214 in the and I know Gladiator's not the perfect comp, but just to get more recent data, in the last 14 Gladiators, he's picked 214 for Yoshida.
That sounds about right. Like, and I'm okay with that. Like, you know, but he's a guy because he's not going to hit for a ton of power. Or at least it doesn't seem like he's going to hit for a ton of power. He's not going to steal very many bases. Like, he really is the kind of guy if you need runs and you need potential batting average, like that's like, he's probably a poor man's Alex Verdugo. Like I think Alex Verdugo still has some upside in him. So
Yoshida could too, but we just don't know. He's an unknown Verdugo, right? So if you're
really
not
little,
what's that?
He's really little.
He's very little. He's listed 5'8", which means he might be like 5'6".
Yeah.
So yeah, no, you're right on that. There is some risk. And again, we did talk about him a couple episodes ago. Pardon me on that. Let's talk about their other signing then. Justin Turner is going to join the club to be DH only. So they got rid of their other DH only. I imagine he'll mix in every once in a while, I think, at first and third. But with Devers and Casas there, it looks like essentially to be a primary DH for Justin Turner. He leaves the Dodgers for the Red Sox. What do you think of Justin Turner coming to the American League? Back to the American League. He started with Baltimore. Some people don't remember that. So he's coming back to the American League 50 million years later here. 2009 was when he debuted with Baltimore. Are you excited by this? He'll be 38. Still puts up numbers. It's all about the volume though, right? 128 games this last year, but 151 the year before that. 42 out of the 60 season, 135, 103. Don't bet on a 151 if you get lucky. Cool. But what do you think of Justin Turner in Boston?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're projecting like 130, but like maybe if he is the DH every day as opposed to playing the field, there's a chance he stays healthier for longer. But learning a lot of his injuries, been running the bases and stuff like that. Man, you know what the first thing I thought of was now they're going to trade Devers, aren't they?
I mean, now it would not surprise me because
now they can trade Devers, right? They got Justin Turner to man third base, and now they can.
Right. That would kill Red Sox fans.
But like with the way they've been going, right?
I know. I don't think you're wrong to broach that subject because the way, like you said, the way they've been going, the way they've been just like being very bizarre and kind of playing like a mid-low market team. We don't know what the hell they're doing. Instead of ponying up for Devers, maybe this is their impetus to trade him. You might be right there. Are you interested in Turner? He hasn't gone very much.
I'm always interested in Justin Turner. Like I feel like he's perpetually underrated.
Always fairly priced because obviously he gets older year after year and the injuries. I feel like the market always gets him right with a fair enough discount or even is too low on him. It's rare that you go Justin Turner, oh my God, he's going way too high. And just in those 4 DCs from December, he's been picked 319. I mean, you could raise that 100 picks and it's not even crazy. He won't go up to 219, I don't believe. But even if you did, I mean, that would put him around Ketel Marte, who's also an injury concern, Ramon Laureano, an injury concern, Josh Naylor, a platoon guy. That's with a 100-pick boost. He's going outside the top 300 right now. Are you going to be drafting Justin Turner?
Yeah, I'll for sure have him on some teams. You know, I mean, he started off slow last year, and the power definitely wasn't what we kind of hoped for, even kind of in a shortened season because of injuries. But I mean, he hit 318, 380, 384, 503 from August 1st on. It was only 5 home runs, but there was 2 stolen bases thrown in there. He's going to hit probably 4th in this lineup, something like that. And once they trade Devers, they'll probably hit 3rd. God, I feel bad for Red Sox. I mean, I don't feel bad for Red Sox fans because
I don't feel bad for
them they've gotten to win quite a bit, and they're pretty obnoxious.
Especially if they're fans of all their Boston teams.
Yeah, like they've won a lot. Yeah, but
I'm crying for them. But it is bizarre. And Chaim Bloom is losing some love out there because they don't know what he's doing.
Fault. Like I know
it likely isn't, right? But the owners have a good way of putting that shit onto the GM's table.
Oh my God! Like
because I'm seeing Bloom everywhere. I don't see John Henry getting heat. I see Chaim Bloom getting all the heat on Twitter and such. So I agree with you. It probably isn't him. Usually their hands are tied, but he's catching the flack.
Yeah, if they end up like trading or just not re-signing Devers, like I don't know what they're doing.
How do you? And then
this is legit the worst team in the division, right? Like, I mean,
easily. And I mentioned a DFA, and it's not even the one that people think. I think people thought I was going to reference the Jeter Downs one, which just makes the Betts trade look even worse. But I was going to bring up Hosmer. We will talk Jeter Downs. I'll add him here in a second. We'll talk. But let's talk about Eric Hosmer getting DFA'd. First off, that's hilarious. Get smoked, idiot. But what do you think about that? You think anybody should pick him up? I mean, somebody will. But are you interested by that? Like, I guess it would have to depend on the situation. But I wouldn't even care. I wouldn't even care. If he goes somewhere and he goes to Pittsburgh and he's going to be the everyday starter, the wrong team because they got G-Man Choi. But if he went to some
Carlos Santana,
that's right. So if he went to some clown team where he could start every day, I still wouldn't be interested because my man cannot hit for power at first base, and I'm not interested in Eric Hosmer.
Outside of an only league or like Super League and Draft Champions, where sometimes you just need at bats.
Yeah, and you just want somebody who plays.
I just don't think he's viable. I mean, in 90% of leagues, I just don't think he's viable anymore.
Yep. So let's talk the Jeter Downs one, because again, that was a pretty stunning DFA, mostly because of what it means for the Betts deal, right? He was kind of the piece. If you go look at his stats, you shouldn't be surprised by the DFA. This guy is a weird player. Like, fantasy people were probably like, wait a minute, that guy, he had 16 homers and 18 steals in 81 games at AAA last year. Why was he getting cut? Let me just double that up. Yeah, right. It came with a 197, 316, 412 line. And even though it was only 41 plate appearances in the majors, he struck out 51% of the time, Justin. He gives new meaning to all or nothing. Like, it's at an extreme level I've never seen. Even Joey Gallo is like, whoa, dude, you got to chill a little bit with this swing and miss, because at least Gallo walks in that major league sample, which again was very tiny at 41 plate appearances. He had a 2% walk rate. In the AAA sample, where he had the 16 homers and 18 steals, Jeter Downs had a 30% K rate and an 11% walk rate. And I'm sorry, that's just not tenable. You can do that in the majors, 30 and 11. That will get you by in the majors, but in AAA, no shot. So he was DFA'd. He's 24. I think at this point, somebody would have to remake him. I don't think this is a tweak. I think this is a rebuild of a player if you're talking about Jeter Downs and acquiring him. Somebody will, but I won't be interested until I actually see something.
Listen, I mean, Jeter Downs, there has to be something that the organization has seen for them to do this, because he's 24 years old, and I don't care like how much he has struck out over the last 2 years or whatever.
But they do care. That's the thing. You don't rebound from that.
But I'm sorry, like, he's 24. You can't tell me that there isn't a place on the 40 man for this guy. Like, he's got options. It's not like he's out of options. Like,
they needed the spot, though.
We just talked about this team is the worst team in the AL East, right?
I agree, but they needed the spot.
Rob Refsnyder,
they got Rob Refsnyder and Emmanuel Valdez. And
Valdez is at least 24. Like, he could be part of the future.
Robert Fair's 32, to your point.
Like, you just can't. They've got 30-year-old relievers on the 40 man. Like, you just can't tell me that those guys.
What are you clinging to with him? Guys do not rebound from this. This is why, and it's not to the same degree. I'm not going 1-to-1 on these guys, but this is why I have virtually no hope for Kelenic, because there isn't a path back from this kind of strikeout rate that we've seen. It is unprecedented to rebuild from that kind of strikeout rate. Now, Downs only has 50 games or 41 plate appearances at the majors. That's nothing. So again, he and Kelenic, I'm not doing a 1-to-1 here.
And I'm not over Kelenic. Like, I believe Kelenic. Kelenic's issues have not been in the minors. He has not had those strikeout rates in the minors.
No, but they've been in the majors, and they've been really bad.
But they've been super small samples.
Oh boy, I don't know, man. You can't find me. I can't get his numbers right now for some reason. Our site is lagging on me. How many plate appearances does he have as a major leaguer? I did the research earlier this year. It's 558. You find me somebody who's rebuilt from a 30% K rate into something viable. He doesn't have enough power to out hit it. And again, I shouldn't have invoked the name of Kelenic because I don't think they're a 1-to-1. Kelenic has more viable major league skills. But as far as Downs, I get what you're saying about the age and then the optics of it being that he was in the Betts deal, but I just don't know what you're clinging to. And I think they just decided to cut bait and say, we're not going to try this. He has no hit tool. He golf swings. You know how you talk about uppercut swing? It's different than uppercut. It is a golf swing because he's always trying to go yard. Every single swing is him trying to go yard, Jeter Downs. So I get it to a degree. I understand the bad look of it because he was the piece of the.
To me, I don't care about like the bad look of it. The bad look of it is like, I'm fine. Like if that's the only thing holding you back is the bad look of it, then let that guy go. Like,
okay, then I'm down with letting him go because that was the only thing that might have held me back.
To me, it's like, why not like try to figure something out with him as a 24-year-old?
Maybe they did,
as opposed to a 32-year-old when you know you're going to be a bad team.
With Rob Refsnyder. I got you on that part. The Refsnyder, I would want to know the Refsnyder versus Downs discussion, right? Yeah. And maybe they just said, because, hey, I gave you just the AAA last year. AAA in 2021 was 190, 272, 333 with 14 homers, 18 steals, 32% K, and 9% walk. The same shit. Like he's done this, like it was actually a good bit worse, to be honest. In 2021, it was a 62 WRC plus. At least last year was a 95. So he improved, but to not even average. And I think they just realized what they had here was untenable. I do get your point with him versus Refsnyder. If you're going to be a team that's on the lower end here, why would you keep some crusty, journeyman? No offense, Rob Refsnyder. I know you listen to the show every once in a while. I love you, dog. But, why would you keep him over Downs? I understand with the 7-year difference. But as far as the talent, I don't think you can necessarily say that they're that far apart.
No, I'm sure you're not. But I mean, one is clearly we know for sure that
we know
Rob Refsnyder is Rob Refsnyder.
Wait a minute. What if he holds that 394 BABIP from last year? You didn't think about that, did you?
You know what? I didn't. I didn't. And we may at this point know who Jeter Downs is, but like, I don't know. Maybe just like as a like he's a halfway decent defender. Like,
are you going to be intrigued when some crap team gets him?
Probably not.
Okay.
So, I mean, if he has a real opportunity for a role, but he's got options, so I think whatever team grabs him, send him down to the minors.
Well, what if the Nats get him and want to play him? Bad example because honestly, their second, third, and short are all covered. So hang on. Let me. I can't really find one because I think even Pittsburgh has their second, third, and short covered. Oakland. Okay, there you go. Oakland gets him. Are you drafting him in an AL only? Jeter Downs.
I'll throw $1 or a reserve.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. You say you go for it. That's fine. Okay. I accept that. We spent a lot of time on Jeter Downs there. Let's move on to a former Red Sox here. I didn't even mean to like chain link some of these relationships here. We went from, one team, the two Carloses and then the Dodgers to the Red Sox to a former Red Sox. No more chaining after that. But we got Andrew Benintendi signing with the White Sox for 412 years. I've been a Benny guy for most of his career. 5 years is tough for me, man. And this is part of why I thought Dansby Swanson was going to get a grip and get over 200 milli because the market's been hot. He gets 5 years, 75 mil, which 15 mil per year is not crazy for Andrew Benintendi because he adds defense speed. He was, even in the mediocre year of 2021 when he put up a 105 WRC plus 1.7 WAR, that's essentially worth 15 mil. The dollar translation that we had was 13.7 mil. So the 15 mil a year doesn't necessarily bother me. It's the 5 years for a 28-year-old Andrew Benintendi who doesn't stay healthy. He had his healthiest year in his rookie season back in 2017 with 151 games. He did get 2 more 600 plate appearance seasons right after that, but it was 148 and 138 games. He missed most of the 2020 shortened season and then 134 and 126 games the last 2 years. So I like him. I root for him. I'm a sucker for guys with great plate approaches, but 5 years is tough. What did you think when you saw Benny going to the White Sox?
I was surprised. He got 5 years. I thought he'd maybe get 3 years or something like that.
Do you think maybe like there was a lot of 4s out there or maybe even a 3 and they came in with 5 because they want defense in the outfield so badly?
Well, I think part of it is like if you have listened to the pod this offseason or done any drafts this offseason, the outfield sucks.
Yeah, that's true. And it's not just a fantasy thing.
It's not just a fantasy thing. It is, generally speaking, outfield is bad right now.
It is tough.
So, and you're also like, especially when we start talking about guys who like are good defenders.
His defense has rounded out, toned down a little bit the last couple of years. Last year, he was 59% percentile in outs above average, which is still better than what they had out there, right? Outside of Robert, I'm talking the corners. So Benintendi should be a value add over an Eloy or a Vaughn there defensively.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, like they were in a really rough spot in terms of like what they were potentially going to have to run out there. And there's really just not a ton left on the market unless you want like a Jerks and Profar is out there and
who I like.
Peralta.
You'd have to trade at this point for them to get an impact guy. Yeah. So maybe they saw him as the last one standing to make a defensive impact while still being a good hitter, right? He's a plus hitter. Even with the power outage.
Yeah. When healthy, he's 122 WRC plus last year. Like
and that's with shit power. He has a 095 ISO Benintendi, but he was able to put up a 122 because he gets on base and he gets base hits. So it's not super fantasy relevant because you don't get the pop, but he did have 8 steals as well. So he gives you a little chip in with the average. I think you should just plan for like 11 homers though. I wouldn't plan much higher than a low double-digit homer total just because of where the power's been lately. Even though it's a good park, I would still lean.
It's a much better park than where he was at last year in Kansas
City. Especially KC.
So, I should look up his X home runs and see what that would have translated as. By the way, for left-handers, he's a left-hander. The last 3 years, it's the third best park factor for homers. Great American and Angel Stadium are the 2 ahead of it, and then guaranteed rate there in third. KC, third worst. So there you go with Benny, and if he's healthy, he would have had 10 home runs,
doubling his numbers.
Yeah, in Chicago. So. I mean, I think you could probably pencil in like 13 home runs and 8 to 10 stolen bases.
Yeah, depending on volume
average. But a boatload of runs because I think it looks like he's going to hit second in this lineup. It's still a pretty darn good lineup at the top. So
I agree.
I mean, like I don't think this is a bad signing for him at all. It's a great signing for his fantasy value. It's probably about as good of a signing as you could have gotten. So
and it's not horrible for them. The 5 just surprised me. But if he can find some late 20s, early 30s health, this deal could pan out really nicely. Because again, even as a league average hitter, he seems to do enough with the hitting or with the speed and defense, base running and defense, to where he can easily be a 2-win guy, and that's worth 15 easy.
An accumulator, he can be an accumulator, which is fine.
Let's keep Benny healthy, and then he can accumulate.
Michael Brantley,
speaking of accumulators, when they're healthy, who can do a lot of good as long as they're on the field. Michael Brantley headed back to Houston, probably snuffs out those Dalton Varsho to Houston trade discussions. What does this do with Alvarez then? Though they want to keep him playing the outfield. That's the part that surprises me here. Or Brantley himself. Either one.
I think it's Brantley.
We either got the 36-year-old or the guy with 36-year-old knees.
Yeah. Maybe they switch off. Maybe they're like,
a little tag team effort there. So I mean, I don't mind like Brantley again. We just got done talking about that. That's Benny's dream is to be Michael Brantley, right? Like that's kind of the perfect outcome would be to be Michael Brantley and find some health and be good. He remained good last year in his 64 games. He just wasn't healthy last year, but 288, 370, 416 for Michael Brantley. Excellent plate skills, more walks than strikeouts. Is he somebody that you think can get back to 500 plate appearances, which he did have in 2021? Or are you projecting him more in like the 430 range?
Yeah, I think I would probably project the 400-ish, 4 to 450, something like that.
Good. That matches his ADP right now, which is 450. I do think there was probably some concern that he would retire. So that's gonna go up. And again, he could go up 100 picks, maybe even 150. I could see Brantley being a top 300 pick now that he signed in back in Houston. But let's just put him at 350. Let's move him up 100 spots, and that puts him in line with Mark Canha, Avisail Garcia, Jerkson Profar, Leody Taveras. That kind of makes sense, right? I mean, they all do different things, but he's in that vein of, hey, I need an outfielder, and if you need average, you go for him. If you need speed, you go for Taveras. If you need pop, maybe you go for Avisail.
That feels about right. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I don't think we need to belabor that with Brantley. Let's keep going here. A lot of smaller moves the rest of the way here, so we'll rapid fire him a little bit more. Joey Gallo signs with Minnesota. I know Minnesota fans are reeling after not getting Correa. They really wanted their club to get that foundational piece, especially after having him last year. He was a really good fit. Obviously, Gallo does not replace that in any way, shape, or form, but that is their big move right now, unless they start getting into the trade market. Joey Gallo in Minnesota, does that intrigue you at all? He's coming off of a pretty rough year there. Obviously, he got run out of New York. Fans were just done with him. He found a little spike when he first got to the Dodgers, but I think some people might be thinking that he did a lot better there than he did. He went from an 82 to a 91 WRC plus. Still pretty bad. He actually struck out more with the Dodgers. It's just that the fans weren't crapping on him every 5 seconds, so it felt like Gallo did better, but he really didn't. Where are you at on the 29-year-old Joey Gallo in Minnesota?
You know what's crazy? Last season was his highest zone contact percentage in the majors. And it was awful. It was one of the worst in baseball.
And he still K'd 40% of the time.
Yeah, because his zone contact was 73.3%.
That is awful.
This is just who he is.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't see a path forward.
Maybe the reduction in the shift. I'm not going to say ban the shift or the banning of the shift because it's not a banning.
We've been very careful about saying
I had to say this multiple times in my chat this morning. Maybe that helps him a little bit. And a little bit could go a long way for somebody like Gallo, right?
True, because if he's hitting even 220, which he hasn't been over 200 since 2019, when he spiked that big BABIP against lefties that helped him to a 253. That was crazy, by the way, but we knew that was coming down. He's been at 181, 199, 160 since then. He's a guy that if he can get to a 200 average, that could be enough. But that's a big jump at this point. That's 60 points from where he was this past year for Joey Gallo. Is there enough power for him to out hit, say, a 190 average? Like, his projection is 188, Justin. We don't usually see that for guys that have foolish seasons of projections. He's got a 414 steamer plate appearance projection with a 188 average for Gallo. We just don't see shit that low. Is he winding up on any of your teams? I know you've taken guys like this in the past, hoping to spike something, but that's usually with guys like a Will Myers, who's hit for some average before. You just got done saying that it's not in the cards for Gallo. So do you even mess with this guy in your drafts?
In like a DC where like I'm so light on power, but like even with a guy like Gallo, like you can get another Gallo at Patrick Wisdom later on. Like, yeah, I mean, like
who at least feels like he has more potential there. And you talk about cheap picks, 454 right now for Gallo.
And I think the problem becomes, will they platoon him? Like right now, we have him scheduled to be in a platoon on roster resource.
With the righty version of himself, Miguel Sano?
No, well, Sano's a free agent.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So,
pardon me.
With like Garlic, Kyle Garlic.
Oh, Kyle Garlic. Okay, that actually makes sense as a pretty perfect platoon.
Which is funny to me that like he's a platoon risk when you talk about like he's awful against righties and lefties. Like he's just awful. Like you're just platooning him because you go, well,
this is an easy. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
He's hitting this against lefties. Well, he's only hitting like 15 points higher against righties. So
it's just an easy way to get him out of the lineup. And just be like, okay, we're just going to at least platoon him because this is not working. So,
I mean,
I don't think either of us are in on Gallo, really.
Not really. I mean, what's his ADP?
454 in the last 4 DCs there. And I already know that you're taking your boy, who the next outfielder off the board is Joe Adell. And I know you'd rather have him 1,000 out of 1,000 times, no?
I don't know, because I think Gallo at least has a path to playing time. Does Adell?
True. No, he doesn't. What about your boy Will Myers, who is unsigned right now, but he's a 457 ADP?
Yeah, I think I'd probably rather have Will Myers. AJ Pollock has garnered some interest. He's going,
who I'd rather have? I'd rather have Jack Sawinski.
Yeah,
I'm not even kidding. Like he goes 458. He's down in this area with the Pirates. Remember, he had a little bit of an all or nothing power spike there that made him a fun pickup for a little while that actually didn't pan out. Most people missed the homers that he got, and then by the time you had him on your roster, he wasn't really doing anything. But I would rather take a shot on somebody like that who might also platoon, who strikes out too much. But he's doing what we are hoping Gallo can get to. He hit 202 with 19 homers and 372 plate appearances. That's the kind of shit that we're desperately hoping Gallo can get back to. So I'd rather have Jack Sawinski. I'm just not taking Gallo.
I'm with you.
Okay. This one isn't official, so scheduled to change. Drew Smyly may be going back to Chicago. I saw it reported on Trade Rumors, but it's not. They wrote it like it was official, and then I went to their roster resource, and he wasn't on there yet. So it's not done, but apparently they're close to a deal as of yesterday morning. So if that doesn't happen, we'll obviously reassess when Smyly is somewhere else. But I want to talk about this not so much for Smyly, but if they do sign him, they're garnering a lot of depth, which really puts a cramp on some of the guys that people are intrigued by, namely Keegan Thompson and Hayden Wesneski, both of whom are currently penciled out of the rotation. Adrian Sampson, we have penciled in as a fifth starter, but even if the Drew Smyly thing happens, then even Sampson is out, I think, with Smyly in there with Stroman, Tayo, and Hendricks and Steele. So how do you feel about this if the Smyly thing does come to fruition? Does that take you off of the Thompson and Sawinski, or Thompson and Wesneski things at all?
I mean, I don't think I was really in on them to begin with. I was pretty low on them.
Oh, I like both of them.
Yeah. I mean, Thompson, I think, is interesting to me.
You don't like Wesneski?
He's okay. Like,
I really like him.
I know he was good last year, but
man.
like his minor league track record was pretty ugly, I think, if I'm remembering correctly.
A little bit of some walk issues at the higher minors, but he had swing and miss. He's got some swing and miss, man. I will say this. You know, they obviously brought in Swanson, who we just talked about. The Bellinger signing is not a game changer. He's obviously more of a lottery ticket. But with the pieces they already had, Horner, Happ, Suzuki, Matt Mervis, who we saw at AFL, and this depth of pitching, I'm not going to sit here and project the Cubs for a playoff spot, but I think they're going to be a good bit more competitive. They were one of those like standard bad teams last year. 74 wins. That's like a run-of-the-mill mediocre bad season. They're not that far off here. And obviously you can never have too much pitching. I'd rather have Keegan Thompson or Wesneski in the rotation, but they're already running 7 deep. So if they get Smyly, who obviously is a very big health risk, but that's still 8 deep off the top for the Cubs. So it's a bummer that those guys that I like might not pitch as much, but the Cubs as a team are a lot more intriguing these days.
The Cubs as a team could be a team that signs Eric Hosmer.
Oh my God. Could you imagine if they did that and screwed over Mervis? Well, I guess
I think
Rivas, right?
Yeah, Rivas. Yeah, I think
we have Alfonso Rivas currently penciled in at first.
Mervis at DH, but
to platoon with P.
But that feels like a Cubs type of move right there.
If they do that, dude, I swear to God.
Especially because he's free, right? Like the Padres.
I mean, that's the funny thing about the Red Sox DFAing him. He was free for them.
I was surprised they did that. Like
that's why it was so funny that they did it, because he was already free. So that is wild. But are you interested in Smyly at all? While we close the book on that one,
not really.
He's a streamer. He's somebody I don't draft. I'd rather pick up in season and kind of play the streaming game. Trevor May to Oakland, good guy. I'm a little bit friends with him on the internet, so I'm always rooting for him. Curious if you think he could close out there in Oakland. I know you were up for the closer's job, so you're probably upset about this. But I know you're going to shift back to just playing offense for the A's. Do you think Trevor May takes that closer's role in Oakland?
Yeah, I do.
And so you'll be drafting him as such, like a closer 3.
Oh, I mean, I think it's kind of dart throw you threw on guys like Daniel Bard last year.
Yeah.
You know, closer 3. Like if it doesn't pan out, it doesn't pan out. Like they've got a handful of guys who could do it. But I think May has probably. Maybe not the best upside. But I think I think
he's the best talent, but not the best upside because he's 33. I get you there. Like Puck, I still think has the best upside.
I think he's like their best flipping opportunity too. So I think if they can get him 10 first half saves or 15 first half saves, they can, send him to whatever team needs a closer for the stretch run, and not have to give up Puck,
for a C plus B minus prospect. His skills, 19% strikeout minus walk rate last year, 13% swinging strike. He misses bats.
He's healthy.
Yeah, exactly. Because the health was the piece that really got him last year. And he even talked about this on his stream. His numbers blew up in a few outing stretch where he said he pushed himself when he shouldn't have, and he regretted it. And he clearly wasn't himself. He had like some bad homer issues that really took him out and pushed his ERA up to 5.04. And homers have been an issue throughout his career. hey, there's no better park than going to Oakland to help a home run issue. So Trevor May is an interesting deep league closer throw. Adam Frazier to Baltimore. The main reason I want to talk about this, not so much about Frazier because he's really an AL only type of play. Are you worried about what he might do for your boy Jorge Mateo?
A little bit, yeah. I think at least to start the season, I think it probably hurts Ramon Urias.
That's what I think should happen because we currently have Gunnar penciled in at short, Urias at third, and then Frazier at second, Mateo on the bench. I don't think that's what's going to happen.
Well, and Urias is coming off of a surgery. He's supposed to miss like most of spring training, I think. So
and the last Mining the News said had a note that said Urias is moving off of third and he's going to be more of a mix and match. So I know I'm not like roasting Jason or anything, but I think when he sees that note, he needs to update. I think you put Frazier at second, Gunnar at third, and Mateo at short. Mateo, for all his foibles as a hitter, which he has many, he's a brilliant defender last year.
Yeah, and
like
I mean,
a true shortstop.
He was like, yes, I know he's like not a very good hitter, but like
great second half though.
Yeah, like he hit for power and he stole a lot of bases. Like he's a scrappy guy. Like even if Mateo loses his starting job at some point, like I think he's a super utility guy, like Jonathan VR type.
Yes. In a weird way. By the way, I said second half. He did tank in September after a good July and August, but he did have those 2 excellent months. In a weird way, are you maybe hoping that Mateo is penciled out of the lineup so you can get him on the cheap?
Yes, because he's way too expensive
his price
right now.
What's that? I'm sorry.
He's way too expensive right now.
Yeah, so this would really mitigate the excitement and price on Mateo. So if you like him, you might actually be pulling for the negative here, just for the benefit of his price. He's at 202 right now. That's a premium, man. And I wrote him up in the forecast.
And that's dropping. I have mine sorted from mid-November on.
Okay.
And it was at 180. So it's already dropping.
20 picks down.
Let it continue to drop, and I'll start getting interested because, like, I can't rationalize taking someone with his bat of plate skills. I know the speed is a premium and stuff like that, but like I can't take him over a Jonathan India or even a Brandon Nimmo or
can't do it.
Mitch Haniger or like so.
I'd have to be desperate for speed. That's the thing. I would have to be desperate for the speed at that point because otherwise,
and like if you're desperate for speed, like why take Mateo top 200-ish when you can take Miles Straw at pick 420? Like they're the same player, and I think Straw, like at least defensively.
I wouldn't say same. Mateo has a little bit more punch.
Sure, but like flaws, you don't care about Mateo's punch. Like you really, because
if you're desperate for speed, the punch is not a deciding factor. That's a fair point. I would rather take like a CJ Abrams, and bet on his upside 40 picks later. Compared to Mateo. So this might actually help him if the rumor out there starts to be like, oh, he might not start, and then people get him back to a more fair price. Because right now it's a premium, and I just don't want to pay that for Jorge Mateo. The Mets signed Omar Narváez, which again, I'm less concerned with that move and more what it does for the team. They now have 3 catchers. They have Narváez. They have Thomas Nido still. Oh my God.
Yeah.
So they have Narváez, McCann, Nido, and Francisco Alvarez, and everyone's all giddy on Francisco Alvarez saying he's going to DH. I disagree. Daniel Vogelbach is going to DH. What's going on here? What are they doing? Are you out on Alvarez?
There's got to be another move coming. Like
has to be, but even that won't clear it up. Even one, I was coming in with 3. They got 4, like you said. So even one move doesn't clear it up. What are you doing with this situation here, as it relates to Alvarez? Because that's what
I'm staying away from all of it right now. You have to remember that Alvarez in most formats is not going to be catcher eligible.
And with Jay Langoliers, so you got to wait to get that catcher eligibility. Which with most positions, I don't care. With catcher, that's a real big deal. I don't want to draft 3 catchers in a non-draft champions type of thing. Like
in draft champions, it's fine. But,
you just wait. But in anything else, I don't want to do that. I think I'm out on Francisco Alvarez this year.
With Alvarez, like, what if it doesn't come? What if this actually does mean he is the DH, and now he is just a DH that splits time with Vogelbach and other guys?
And are we sure he's like up from day one?
I don't think he can't be right now.
Yeah,
there's no way you can roster 4 catchers. Like
no shot.
They need to move at least 1, maybe 2.
At least 2, I would think.
And no one's taking on that McCann contract, so they're going to
so it has
that
to be
McCann contract.
Has to be Nito, and then
they just signed Narváez.
So Alvarez himself, exactly. You're not going to just flip.
Maybe maybe they are going to trade Alvarez. Maybe that's
because you can get something spicy for him. Obviously, he's got very high upside. I like Alvarez, the player. Don't get me wrong when I say I'm out, folks. I'm talking in fantasy drafts right now. I can't do it because it's too sketchy. Overall, I like this kid. He's 21 next year.
Though? Like this team is like solid.
What do they need? You're saying, I don't know. I don't know exactly what it would be.
They've got too many rotation pieces. Their bullpen is pretty.
And you're not trading him for a reliever. You're not trading Alvarez for it. Would have to be a third baseman.
Batty. Like, why would you block Batty?
That's true. I was looking at Eduardo Escobar. That's a good point. I don't have an answer. I don't know what's going on. So even when the Mets are good, I think they're still Metsing. Like, what's that?
Maybe it's an elite left fielder or something like that.
Yeah, maybe just like a premium outfielder because Mark Canha, who I do like, he's not immovable. In fact, you might actually like him as a 4 corners sort of rotating guy. He play left. Not 4 corners, that would mean third, but like left, right, first, DH type of thing where he just bounces around because he's also not a super healthy guy at age 34. So maybe something like that.
Unless, let's bring it around full circle. It's Alvarez and Beatty for Rafael Devers.
There we go. I wish that would have been our last thing. We do have 2 more small moves, but that would have been a perfect way to close it with the full circle. But hey, something's got to give there. Mets fans, if you are clued in on something, let us know. Because when I saw that, like I said, I forgot about Nito. Now that it's 4 catchers, I don't have any idea what the hell's going on. Let's talk about 2 small moves that the Rockies got rid of, players that we've, bragged about, or not bragged about, gushed over on this channel quite a bit at times. They're both leaving Colorado, which undercuts them. But you made an interesting point about the first guy. We'll talk about Connor Joe being traded to Pittsburgh. And I said, well, you can't get a much worse move than that. Except what did you bring up to say, hey, actually, there's one small silver lining here with Connor Joe going to Pittsburgh. And that was?
I think it's a greater path to playing time.
Bingo.
He was weirdly not getting playing time in Colorado.
They gave up on him.
Yeah, and we roster resource projected him to start the year in the minors. And so if that's actually would have been the case, then yes, they should have gotten rid of him and gotten something in return. They did.
Let me give you your dub on him, by the way, too. You were not a huge Connor Joe guy, and I was arguing pretty hard for him, saying, he's going to play. He's Colorado. He's a good hitter. He sucked last year. So I'll take the L on that. You got the dub. 7 homers, 6 steals. 238 is the thing. The one thing I would have told you that I was dead set on was that he was going to hit for a good average, especially in that ballpark, and he just didn't. Yeah. So he simply wasn't that good. He's not guaranteed a starting role in Pittsburgh, but when I texted you that and I said about, him going Colorado to Pittsburgh just murders him, and you're like, well, he's got a much better chance to play. And I do agree with that. Even though we don't have him penciled in to start right now, the aforementioned Jack Sawinski is not guaranteed to hold him off. Cal Mitchell, even G-Man Choi, who I like and I think is going to be decent. Joe could get some first base run there against lefties. So there might be a better path to playing time. He's really an NL only type guy, if anything.
He's got to raise the launch angle. What happened was he still made a lot of contact. Like he still had almost 90% zone contact, but it was so much goes in the ground.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then our other one, a long time sleeper in the bust guy, mostly bust, very rarely sleeper. Garrett Hampson, he's gone. Finally out of Colorado. We don't have to keep pretending that we're interested in him. He's going to Miami. Do you have even a shred of interest in this?
I mean, they already have an older version of him in John Birdie, right?
That's the problem. That's weird.
Are they really going? I think if Birdie gets hurt, then you go, oh, maybe Hampson can take that role.
I think I would like Charles LeBlanc even more, though. Yeah. And this is a minor league deal, by the way, too. So this is he is buried again, but I had to bring him up because we've talked about him so much.
Pouring out for our homie,
pouring out for him. Yeah, I don't even think you need to consider him an NL only. He could be an in-season pickup if things change and you needed some speed. But other than that, Garrett Hampson era, his fantasy consideration, the book is closed. So Last big moves, unless we get like a trade bonanza. I can't imagine we have any more episodes that are just moves only. But this has been awesome, man. We got like 4 straight episodes of all
It's
moves
not even New
before
Year's.
the new year.
Like,
exactly.
all
dude.
the top 30 guys are pretty much gone.
Yep. Again, I was reading, I read off that list to you earlier. The best guys by projected WAR, the top 2 that are over 2 wins are 2.6 for Segura, 2.3 for Eovaldi. Like, there's some solid role players, and some of these guys will pop. Eovaldi can throw 150 innings. He can be good. Kluber, same thing. Conforto might find it again. Drury might get to another good hitting spot. You can find some pockets here, but there's no game changers on this list anymore. It's awesome that we got all this, before the new year, before Christmas. And it's been a lot of fun. So that's been great. A lot of moves here, lots of stuff going on. Justin, have a good week. Stay healthy because you got to get your Christmas shopping done. But don't run yourself to the bone on the projections and stuff. You got time. It's not even Christmas yet.
Well, I'm going to be working hard on them this week, hard on them next week. Especially with the Psycho on Dark, I'll have more time to just hammer out projections. Still hoping to have the majority, if not all of them, done by the new year. We'll see how close I get to that. But as soon as I do, I'll have all the projections up on the Patreon, including pretty much like auction values for pretty much every format. So that'll be awesome.
That is awesome. We will pod Friday, barring sickness for either of us, but then we'll be off the following week. So have a good one. I'll talk to you on Friday.
Take it easy.